Hello everybody. This is another version or issue or instance of more gaming magazines that I grew up with. And this time we're looking at a magazine that came out a year after the one that I viewed last time, which came in 91. This is GamePower. This would eventually become Super GamePower when they combined this with Super Game. I think Super Game is called. The other magazine. And we'll look at that later as well. This one is particularly interesting because as you see on top there, right, at the top of the screen, this doesn't cover actually Sega systems. It would later, again, when they change the name and everything, but this time, at the beginning, in 92, this is from July 92. This didn't cover it. So, it covers arcade games though, so this is a kind of important thing. Anyway, the format they had is a little bit different, where some games was more like, I guess, generic in a sense. I don't know if they had changed the format by this point, but there was a small format change by some games later. But either way, yeah, I think they changed the format by this point. But anyway, this one has a little bit different. It works a little bit more like GamePro used to work with like reviewers, like a reviewer system of sorts. Anyway, so this is the front cover. Blanca there, of course, with the pretty famous box art for the Super Nintendo game, as far as I know. And promotions, a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, yeah, and it says right down here that finally there is a magazine that's specialized in Nintendo stuff. Curiously enough, so you remember the thing about Nintendo clone consoles, right? Well, there weren't any clone consoles for the Super NES. Not really that I know, maybe later, but not really that I remember. And also, there's a thing that by that point, I think in around 94 or something like that, Playtronic actually became like the official thing. So, and these guys started off, I think there is no single ad in this magazine. I think there is no, but maybe we'll find one that actually promotes one of those clone consoles. That's interesting too, because they wanted to keep things legit, let's say, right? And as far as I know, yes, there were pirated games for the Super NES. Of course there were. And I rented them as well as everybody else. And I probably have a couple of them too, laying around somewhere. But the thing is, they were kind of pushing for this being a little bit more legit, let's say. So for that case, let's go continue. Pro Games, again, the same, I guess, same stores that advertise in different magazines will just advertise in all magazines, I guess, right? So there's our index. So it has Contra 3, Street Fighter 2, which had come out a little earlier. So here's a thing already. Street Fighter 3. So there's a thing about naming things 3, right? So I'll give you an example. In Chile, for example, people were talking about Rise of the Triad when that came out as Doom 3. So think about that for a second, right? I mean, technically, if you want to be like really, really technical, it is kind of Doom 3, isn't it? Sort of, kind of, maybe. Or maybe it's kind of Doom 1.5. I don't know. It's weird because, as you know, Tom Hall actually was working on Doom and he implemented many of his ideas in Rise of the Triad. So I don't know. It's a weird example there. But there's no way this is Street Fighter 3. This is just Street Fighter Championship Edition. .ce, right? Turbo hasn't come out yet. So, big deal in Brazil, though. This was a big deal in arcades. Really big deal. Anyway, so here's more stuff. And here's the editor. And here is basically the critics for basically the... What I was talking about when I said that this has a critic system, this is what I'm talking about. Basically, it so happens that they have... Alright, somebody talk to me in the background. Okay, so there's basically these 4 reviewers. We know from interviews and from the documentaries about this magazine that the girl there was a lie. Funny enough, right? Doesn't exist. The other 3 guys do. And so they're also kind of exaggerated, and they were meant to represent kind of different demographics. So the Baby Betinho, like that guy over here that looks like kind of like Bruce Willis, I guess. He is basically like, yeah, he likes fighting games. The other guy, the Japanese guy, he likes RPGs. And the USA kind of guy, he's like, I don't know what the hell he likes. I guess he likes sports games. I don't know. He doesn't say. And the girl likes like Mario and Top Gear for that. I don't know. But she doesn't exist, so it's, yeah. But it's kind of a part of the thing. Oh, here's a thing, right? Advertisements, and they're advertising the Neo Geo, right? So you have an idea how much that costed in Brazil, right? That's amazingly expensive. But yeah, hilarious. They're advertising Street Smart along with the Neo Geo, right? Because Street Smart is actually from SNK, but it didn't come out on the Neo Geo at all. So kind of a trash game too. Anyway, so this is the release of Street Fighter 2, right? This had just come out, or around the time, right? So they were basically reviewing it, and it was a really big deal, as everybody knows. This Super Nintendo port of Street Fighter is one of the reasons why Street Fighter was such a big thing. Well, it was a big thing in the arcades, sure, but many of us had most experience playing it on the consoles. I think that's just universal because the port was also really, really good. Nowadays, of course, you can argue it's kind of trashy, but Street Fighter 2 was also kind of trashy, so I guess it's fine. Anyway, talk about stuff. There's the code for the fighting your own character code. 2.5, right? Because 3, remember, is C. I guess Super Turbo is like Street Fighter 5 or something. Weird. Anyway, so then you basically have a bunch of strategies to fight against the other characters in the arcade mode, and so on. Then they're using, this is fun, they're using like the little illustrations from the manual. And the names are funny, like, look at this thing. So, Ken and Ryu have Fireball, right? Shenlong, right? Hadouken, or something, right? Hurricane Kick, which is, okay. Then look at this, and Guile has Sonic Boom, okay? But Jackknife, huh? Jackknife. So it's the Flash Kick, right? That's the actual name, right? As far as I know. Lightning Hand, Sumo Torpedo, okay. I don't know what that's actually called, but Torpedo, I guess. Pile Drive Spin, Pile Driver, they forgot the spinning part. And Spin Punch, I guess it's Clothesline, I guess. Anyway, Shock Therapy. And Cannonball, Yoga Fighter of Fame. This is funny too, like Cyclone Kick. She actually said Spinning Bird Kick, right? That's the name, but I guess. And Wind Kick, I had never known that was called a Wind Kick. Like the modal kick thing, I had no idea. Anyway, here's more advertisements. No, this is actually a promotion, okay. So here's a bunch of reviews. And again, so you see there is a scoring system with graphics, sound, fun factor, and challenge. Interesting actually putting challenge there, but I guess, yeah. So, oh, they messed up. That's hilarious. So yeah, they hadn't actually ironed out the format yet very well, and you can see here a huge, pretty big bug. So console, yeah, amount of players, 1 or 2, and then the amount of stages, human, and then maker is 8 megabits. Of course, this is this is the actual one, so maker, and then size of the card. Of course, yeah. They kind of messed up here. I guess it happens. I mean, it was the first issue, right? So, Super Soccer, by the way, many people had that because it came bundled with, in South America at least, it came bundled with a Super Nintendo in many instances. In Chile, I think I saw it the most because it was a bundle and everybody had it. So I played the hell out of this, and I think we played a lot just the penalty shots. It was actually pretty fun. Kind of weird, but I guess it was fun back then, I guess. Rocketeer is a weird movie and the game is awful, but there you go. 7 out of 10 for fun. Good. Crazy Super Funhouse, pretty good game, horrible music. Top Gear. So here's the thing, right? So Top Gear is in Brazil, like Top Gear is a really big deal. Like this was a really popular game in Brazil. Remember the Brazilian gaming crowds liked racing games, right? A lot. So this was a pretty big deal. Everybody played Top Gear, right? And it's a good game. I like it, right? It's not, I mean, it's not amazing, but it's okay. And there's a bunch of games, indie games made in Brazil right now that try to copy this. Horizon Zero Chase? No. Horizon Chase? I don't know the name. There's a Horizon Chase something. There is a game, like there's a 3D game that looks like this one. But it's kind of evoking that kind of vibe. And then of course there is the one that we covered in the channel, which was Slipstream, which also has a little bit of this mixed in. Though that was more of a Outrun thing than a Top Gear thing, but anyway, you still get the influence though. Anyway, Contra 3, I guess there's not really much to say about Contra 3, other than it being a really pretty good game, right? A bunch of strategies for beating the game. And so I noticed that the ads all have official original hardware, right? Here's the, I mean, of course, this is a magazine focused on Nintendo, but you have an ad with just Sega stuff. It's fine. But it's official Sega stuff, so that's probably why they just let it. This would actually relax as time went on, because it's kind of untenable to do this if most of the country doesn't, play by your rules, right? If everybody's just having, clone consoles, you can't just, pretend it doesn't exist, especially when everybody had one. Well, I didn't, but everybody I knew had one, right? So here's some cheats. None of them as crazy as that crazy shit with the Strider cartridge from the some games. So here's a bunch of stuff. Oh, this is the news section. Okay. Jetsons for this for the NES. Lethal Weapon 3. His brother. Bunch of stuff. So this is the NES. This is Flying Warriors. This is Hiryu no Ken, right? I think it's called. Which is a pretty long series of games, very involved, and they're all kind of a little weird, and they're all kind of a little shit too, in my opinion. But I do like the Super Nintendo one. I think it's called Golden Fighter, like Hiryu no Ken S Golden Fighter or something like that. A huge name. It's kind of trash, but it's fun trash at least. At least I liked it. So here's more stuff, passwords and so on. Yeah, this is basically a Genesis controller with a different name, branding. Yeah, this is made in Brazil. Of course it's made in Brazil, right? They just copied the form, right? I guess somebody sold them the molds for that, something like that. The Phantom System, which we'll probably see in another magazine, has exactly the same controller shape as this, except that of course it's a NES clone, so it has actually two functioning buttons. I don't know what the other one does, and when I've played that back then, I don't remember trying what the button does. I think it does nothing. I'm not sure. Anyway, so here's more cheats and codes and things. Again, nothing as crazy as what's going on with the Strider card. We're in Carmen Sandiego, pretty cool. It's an NES version, Super Spy Hunter. This is a pretty good game. Nobody kind of gave a shit about because it was at the end of the NES lifespan, which is Vice Project Doom, right? Pretty cool game. Really good graphics too. Race America. Also interesting game. Pretty. This one's pretty interesting because it's kind of a little bit ahead of its time, in a way, right? There's a bunch of stuff that other games didn't do. This is, I guess, news. Yeah, this is actually more like news from like American sources. And by this point, the Sega and Nintendo fight was like fully going on. It was complete war at this point, right? And OS and NES had just gotten Street Fighter 2, which was a huge blow to the Genesis, because of course they didn't have it until later. And to be fair, the port that the Genesis got for Street Fighter is actually not bad. I like it. A little bit crappy in terms of how it looks and whatever, but gameplay-wise, I think it's okay. I mean, it could be much worse, as we saw with a bunch of the other ports, especially the NES ones. Anyway, so this is, this was also the time where the Sega CD came out around that time, so it was rumors of being, adapter for the Super Nintendo where you have a CD-ROM, on which we know, of course, end up being the PlayStation eventually. So here's the launch of Street Fighter CE, right? It's Championship Edition, or Champion Edition, sorry. And this is one of those cool things that I only noticed years later. The arcade cabinet they got the screenshots from has a decoloration on the corner there, right? So I used to think this was actually how the game looked like, which looks pretty cool, honestly. Of course, it doesn't look like that. It's just a problem with the CRT. It's a really damn good screenshot, though, all things considered. And honestly, I remember the screenshots from this magazine in particular, especially the way they are like oversaturated, kind of like cemented the way this game should look in my head. So years later, when I played it in emulators or whatever, right, I always tried to recreate the way it looked in this magazine. Weird how that does work, right? It's like, it's a weird thing, but it happens with, the first impressions count, right? Anyway, big deal here was, of course, you could play with the bosses, and there's a bunch of changes to the characters, and, well, Street Fighter C, everybody knows that. So yeah, anyway, so here's a bunch of more stuff in terms of advertisements, Game Boy launches. Again, really impressive Game Boy screenshots. They're actually really damn good. Like, I don't know, again, really, really good job there. And yeah, so that was, I think, yeah, that's the first issue. It's actually pretty short, as you can see. And then, of course, it came with a poster, which was actually the art for the Street Fighter 2 cover art. The SNES cover art. I still have this somewhere, honestly. Yeah, this magazine ended up being important later. It was one of the biggest, what's it called, like rivals for some games, basically. And when they combined with Super Games and it became Super GamePower, then they actually had a lot more going on. They could, and when we cover one of those issues, we'll see, because they end up having this partnership with GamePro, so they could get some of the previews and some of the material from GamePro, and let's say so import it into Brazil into their format. So they had a lot of international content that some games, well, didn't have. So it was actually a pretty cool thing, especially back then, because getting GamePro, any of those things, was expensive. It was really hard, and you wouldn't get the latest issue. You would get something, unless you were subscribed to it. But it was actually a pain, because imagine them, being subscribed to a magazine, you have to send stuff to South America. It's kind of a big deal. Anyway, so that's been everything for now. I'll catch you guys next time. Remember to subscribe if you liked the video. Click the bell button to be notified of future videos if you want to do that. I hope you do. And leave a comment if you want to see another magazine. It could be anything, honestly. Just have to suggest something. I'll see if I can find it. And otherwise, yeah, hope you had fun. And, well, see you guys next time. Game on.